Hey friends, we are back at livecoding.ca. My name is Nick Taylor, your host, and I'm hanging out with James Q Quick today. James, how you doing today?
What's up? What's up? Doing good, man. Doing good. Busy,
Awesome,
busy
awesome.
week before going out of town next week, which should be fun. We can talk about that if you want to. But anyway, yeah, fun
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, no, for sure. I know you were at Magnolia JS. Was that last week
hmm
or?
That
Yeah, so you've been
was,
kind of making the rounds.
yeah. Yeah, it's hard to believe it was forever ago now, but yeah, that was just last week and it was incredible. I got to see a bunch of people in person and hang out and stuff. It was super fun.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. So, speaking of conferences and stuff, that's my terrible segue to say, let's talk a bit about some content creation. I know we're going to talk about SvelteKit in a bit, but I know recently you kind of went in all in on content creation full time, which I'd love to hear about. But I'd also be kind of curious how you kind of started in content creation because we were talking briefly before the stream, and I just remember seeing blog posts of yours on people might not be familiar with this site now, but it was called scotch.io by, was it Chris Severs? I forget his last name, who owned it.
Sevilleja. I always want to say it like a Spanish last name with
Okay.
double L, so Sevilleja, but I think he says Sevilleja. But Chris Sev
Okay.
on socials and stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so that's just my that's the first time I encountered your content, and I think that was like maybe in 2018, maybe even 2017. I can't remember how far back that was, but
Yeah. I
yeah.
honestly I don't know which, to be honest. um but I kind of want to jump to that point because that's a time period I haven't talked about as much. But really quickly, like I was doing technical evangelism at Microsoft and I was doing regular things, speaking at conferences and workshops and stuff. And as I would do these workshops, people would ask the same question over and over again. It's like, why don't I just
Yeah.
record a video and then just be like, go watch the video so I can help more people at one time, like help scale the impact of the stuff I was doing. So that was
Yeah.
the original reason I did any video content at all. I never had dreams of like being a video creator, a YouTuber, Twitter, but I never had like none of that. And
Okay.
then fast forward a couple of years, and I was working as an engineer at FedEx, and I miss doing content. I miss going and speaking at events and conferences, and I just started doing all that stuff on my own again. So I started to take YouTube seriously, and I guess that was like 2017 probably. So I started doing
Okay.
it consistently. At the time, I reached out to Wes Boss because I had seen something he did on YouTube. And this is before
Okay.
he was as big as he is now. But I reached out to him and I was like, "Hey, can I like talk to you and ask you any advice as a content creator?" So he gave me a cell phone number. We like chatted on the phone for 30 minutes, which is really cool, like super cool of
Oh,
him.
that's awesome.
I
No,
know.
that is super cool.
Yeah. So anyway, I was like starting to do all this stuff and I came across Scotch.io that you mentioned, and I set a goal for myself. I think it was in 2017 to
Okay.
write one article on scotch.io. I'd found the platform. It was cool. I was following Chris on Twitter. I was like, I want to write one article. And so I ended up talking to Chris online, got set up to write, met him at person at NGConf that year in
Okay.
2017. And my goal was like, my priority is YouTube videos, but so I'm going to create a YouTube video and then create a corresponding article for it after I've already got like
Okay.
the outline and stuff and get paid for it on Scotch. So it was like, I think a couple $100 per article at the time. So I really got in this rhythm. And I mean, in 2017, I maybe created 20 articles. And then in 2018, I created like 40 or something. So I was doing articles like almost once a week along with my videos. And that consistency like really helped kind of like jumpstart, I think, the content creation piece. Been doing that ever since. Had a big like couple of years doing content in terms of growth recently during COVID, and
Okay.
kind of led me to where I am now to be able to do it full time.
Yeah, no, it's been really cool to see things grow in terms of your content creation. Like I said, I used to always retweet those because you were doing a lot of VS
hmm
Code kind of things. I mean, you did
Yep.
other stuff too, I believe, but because I was running, well, I still run it, but there's a VS Code tips handle that I run on Twitter, and so I was retweeting out your posts and stuff,
hmm
and then I remember one day you're like, James Q Quick gave you a follow. I'm like, yes. so it's
Yes.
so it's kind of cool because like it kind of ties into like I'm not a full-time content creator, but even when I started that VS Code tips, like I had a plan to just, slowly build it up because I only had so much time. And like
hmm
even now, like I mean, when I started off, it was like very few followers. It's getting close to 6,000 now, but that's since like
That's awesome. Yeah.
2017. That's since 2017, but it's like it's
Hmm.
just been slow growth because like I only have a finite amount of time because I do work full time. So, and and I kind of want to touch on that, like growing, becoming. I don't want to use the word popular, but like obviously, it's. I mean, you are a popular content creator now. Kudos to that. But I mean, like, it's not all just like, hey, I put out a few blog posts or videos and like I made it, or like, send me that YouTube plaque. I think some people realize this, but a lot of times, like, there's a lot of work that goes into this. And like anything, you could put all that time in and you don't make it, or it just
Hmm.
fizzles or whatever. So I'd be kind of curious if you could kind of talk a bit about that, because I imagine you put in a ton of time into all of this. So,
Yeah, it's definitely a ton. I looked recently, and I forget what the number is, but it's like almost 500 videos that I have on YouTube, and that goes back to like a couple of early series I had that were like 20 videos a piece, and then just creating videos once or twice a week for the last several years. And that's
okay.
pretty hard to believe, but I think that's important for people to know that like maybe they come across me recently or now for the first time, and they see an audience, a size of an
Yeah.
audience, and people just kind of assume that like that's the way it is, and the reality is like no, like this is I created content for years with like very little interaction and not much growth. And I actually
Yeah.
really suffered from like a combination of imposter syndrome and jealousy, to be honest, that I had to deal with, of like looking at other content creators that started after me that really jumped up. But I also
Yeah.
use that as motivation to know like this sort of growth is possible. And so there's a list of people I could name. But anyway, we have like a programming YouTubers Discord, which is such a
Okay.
great environment for us to share tips and tricks and growth and like feedback and stuff. So I think that's been huge for me too. But absolutely the biggest thing for me has just been consistency. And it's the easiest piece of
Yeah.
advice to give. It's the hardest piece of advice to follow because of how much work it takes.
Yeah.
So I think I've been fortunate in the sense that like doing developer advocacy for the last couple of years, there's a natural overlap with doing that sort of stuff on my own and with the company. So I get to steal a little bit of time from each.
Yeah.
And maybe if I get better at doing that at work, I'm now better at doing that in my personal time and vice versa. So that's kind of helped. But it definitely is like, it was like getting up early and before starting work at 9, creating a YouTube video. And the thing that people, I think, don't necessarily think about is all the small things that go along with it. So to create a YouTube
Yeah.
video, come up with a topic, build a demo, record it, create cover images, learn about SEO and creating titles and text on thumbnails and all these things, and marketing and
Yeah.
like building a newsletter and staying consistent. And there's like a million different things. I think that's the hardest part. Like the actual video itself is
Yeah.
almost by far the easiest part. It's the creating the demo and then all the other things that go around it. And that's overwhelming. And like we can take this in a lot of different ways. But I was just telling my
Yeah.
wife, like in some ways you would think doing this full time now, I would be like, I like this is really good. Like I have plenty of time to do all the things I need
Yeah.
and want. And it's like it couldn't be farther from the truth. There's infinite amount of things that I still want to do, and
Yeah.
it's a good like exercise because I still have to prioritize. I still have to build my own schedule and like set boundaries and limitations and all that kind of stuff. But there's a million things that I never have time to do that like I'm hoping to kind of build some things up and get even more
Yeah.
momentum like going into next several months, next year, et cetera. But yeah, it's been a lot of hard work that I've really enjoyed over the course of several years, and now I get to do that full time.
No, that's awesome. I can like I'm not a full-time content creator, and like, but kind of what you're saying there about like when you're doing dev advocacy, you could actually kind of practice your kind of content creation chops, because
Mhm.
dev advocacy has a lot of content creation in it on its own.
Absolutely.
And I used to work at dev.to for folks in the chat that might not know. And I convinced them one Hacktoberfest back in 2020, because I had started streaming on my own because it was all open source. It was pandemic. I was like bored kind of. So I just started doing that. And once I convinced them to do it for Hacktoberfest, I was able to kind of make it into part of my job, even though I was an
Hmm.
engineer there. And but I was given limited time to do this, because like they're like, yeah,
Yep.
go ahead, but don't spend like
Don't do too
tons of.
much.
I'll sideline my thought for a sec, but I like you, like doing the video, or like when I stream, I'm super comfortable streaming, whether I'm doing live coding, talking to people. It's the prep which I've gotten better at over the years. Like I automate
Yeah.
a lot of stuff. I eventually treated myself to a stream deck, which helps too. But the biggest fear for me always was, and it happened like early on once or twice where like all of a sudden like I go live and the audio's not working and you have to be like kind of cool about it, but like I'm not a it's not like I'm a podcast engineer or anything. Like I know very basic things, so
Hmm.
that's the part that stresses me out, and I kind of have that narrowed down now. Like
Yeah.
I found some good software for things, and like I don't know if you use Loopback, but I use that to feed in some things for virtual audio. So
Can I tell you my loopback story, which is that was the issue I was just having. I've used loopback for years and I installed on this machine and there was some sort of permission that I couldn't figure out how to set. So I just hadn't dug into it in like the last couple of months because I just hadn't. And so I dug into it
yeah.
yesterday. I finally, like, you have to restart the machine, go into recovery mode, set some special setting, finally got it set up, but I didn't actually add my license key. So what
Oh,
Loopback
okay.
does is as you're on trial mode, it just popped up with a notification that says trial limitations are now active. While it's in trial mode, noise is being overlaid on all audio passing through your Loopback audio device, which is where that came from. So I just went away from Loopback for now to get better audio and just
Okay.
come for the mic. And then I'll
Okay.
I'll
Okay.
add the license key later on. But yeah, Loopback is awesome. And to your point, like, you can elaborate more into this. Like, that's
Yeah.
another piece of content creation that is overwhelming. Like, I can't tell you how many hours of videos I've watched on YouTube about recording
Yeah.
YouTube videos, about lighting, about video, about audio. Like, I mean, and I was watching videos last night about how to do like a portable podcast setup. There's like infinite amount of
Okay.
stuff that I've learned, and there's infinite amount of stuff that I like still don't know and still have to get better at. So,
Yeah, no, for sure. I have basic lighting in here. I don't have any fancy Elgato lights yet, but like I have it's kind of funny because so I have an office in my basement. We redid our basement like a few years ago, and so I had
nice.
already been working partially remote at this point. So I was like, I want a dedicated office since we're doing the basement, and it's got pot lights in my office here and stuff, and it's great. But it never occurred to me that I would ever be doing streaming or any
Mm.
kind of video content. So when I turn the lights on, it just creates a shadow on me. So so then I basically ended up buying a couple not too expensive lights, but I have like one over here and I have one behind my laptop over here, and it provides, and again, I'm just like, I'm not a sound expert, I'm not a light expert, so it's just really
Yep.
I move it around until I figure my face looks kind of okay.
That's how it
But
is. I mean, unless you get like an actual professional, you buy stuff, experiment with it. And I mean, I've probably been too spendy at times where it's like I didn't actually need the thing. It was just easier to spend money and think I was doing something productive than to actually learn how to use the things that I had. It's a fun hobby, especially when you're able to generate like even at like a couple $100 a year, whatever, on side income through content, reinvest that into the setup. Like, that's what I've done just year
yeah,
after year, is continue to like make some money, reinvest that into tools and hardware and everything that I need, and continue to build it
yeah.
up to get better and better at it over the course of many years.
Yeah, for sure. And there's some stuff I've started doing. Like I don't have a podcast or anything yet, and I dropped a link to the compressed FM. I'll drop that
Mm,
again because I think it's way up there. But I use the script as well. Like once I do my video, because I put my streams up on YouTube, and one thing I started doing is I'm actually spending time editing them. I know a lot of people don't edit their streams; they just upload them.
mhm,
But I kind of realized after, because like there's some good chats I have with people, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna clean this up, and I've been reusing the content in some cases. Like I'll get the transcripts, I'll use that as part of a blog post, or like I'll pull clips out and stuff. So like I'm kind of I'm just kind of thinking of a long game in terms of content, like, and I can put these things out even months later, even though I streamed
mhm.
like before, so there's, and I'm still kind of winging stuff, but it's, again, because I'm not a full-time content creator, I pick my pockets of where I can do these things, but
Yep.
the editing definitely takes quite a while, and that's,
Mhm.
and I can't imagine if you're doing videos like, we'll talk about, you have a course coming out on SvelteKit too as well, like when people see those videos on YouTube, like that 3 minute perfect, click here, do the, like that 3 minutes is probably like hours and hours, maybe longer. I don't know. But,
That's the
I guess,
sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
oh no, I was just curious how you deal with that. Cause like, sometimes you must be like, this is like,
Yeah, it's again like all the things that go into creating content is more than just what you see in the final video or stream or audio. So one of the things I think is a very good characteristic of myself, and also like all characteristics have good and bad depending on the extreme of which you like take them. So this is a good and bad
Yeah.
thing for me. I'm very comfortable doing something to like 80% done and kind of calling it done. So the downside of that
Yeah.
is like I rarely have the final polish that a lot of other people do in a lot of different areas. Like even my DIY projects that I like have started to
Yeah.
focus on the last couple of years, they're pretty good, but like that last 10, 20% or oftentimes is not necessarily there. And same thing with my content. So my editing process for video especially is as minimal as possible. So I listen
Yeah.
to the
Yeah.
video at 2 or 3 times speed as I'm editing. I have I and O for in and out, and then X for ripple delete. So I just IOX, 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 and go through that way.
Okay.
I add a few like zoom in things. I add a few text overlays, but really not that much. And so I look at
Okay.
like content creators like Jesse from the Code Stacker channel, and his stuff is always so beautiful, and I'm always jealous about it. But to keep up with the consistency, like I just can't. I can't spend that amount of time doing it. So it's definitely a tough balance. I try to get it to the point where it's definitely good enough for people. If I were to get feedback, it would be like one person would notice something or like very few people, and still provide the most amount of feedback for the most amount of people with a reasonable amount of effort. So my video editing for a 15-minute video, like maybe 20 or 30 minutes. For a longer
Okay.
video, like a little bit higher than that. So I'm not one of those people who spends hours and hours in
Okay.
editing, just because at the end of the day, like nothing's gonna be perfect, and it's better to get that thing out in my mind than it is to spend more time and delay getting it out by spending more time editing.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. It's kind of like software too, like if
Hmm.
you're waiting to ship something perfect, it's never going to ship. Like put it out, software is always going to have bugs, like obviously don't put out something that's kind of like half baked potentially, but like, like you kind of minimize the scope, so you're like, okay, we can't do all these things right now. It'll take like a year to get all that out. Let's do this piece, like, so that
Hmm.
it's usable and stuff. So
Yep.
I can definitely appreciate that from the content perspective, because at the end of the day, the people watching it, they're just absorbing the information, right? Like, but I mean, I've seen your videos and they still look pretty good. So,
Yeah, and that, again, that's still like that's over the course of like years of. I definitely compare myself to other people from video editing, and I'm like, theirs looks much better. Mine looks to you very good, which is great. Thank you. I appreciate that. But that's also for other people's awareness that like that's me streamlining my process over the course of, again, 5 years easy of consistently creating videos, learning small things and applying those. And then also trying to like templatize and set up shortcuts. I'm a huge shortcut
Mhm.
person. So if you see like on my videos, like my face is full screen and then it's on the corner, I've got a shortcut to put my thing in the corner. I've got a shortcut to place my like social overlays and to style my text overlays and all those things. So
Okay.
like you continue to refine that process so that you can add more with the same amount of time and effort, or like add less, but also it take less time and effort, if that makes sense. So it's, yeah, it's evolved over the
Yeah.
course of years.
I can't speak to like YouTube content because I don't really create any yet. I mean, I have a couple of things, but it's mainly my stream uploads. But my stream, like if you look at the stream right now, it's got a footer with like, you on there, and there's the chat, and I've got my silly alpaca with hats changing and stuff. When I first started streaming, it was literally a black screen. If I was sharing my video, my code, I had VS Code open, and it was my webcam. That was literally it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And you know, I I still want to tweak what I have here because it's just fun to tinker with, but I also wanted to get it into a professional enough mode, because like even when I was working at Dev 2, I couldn't put as much time into it either. So like I always had just basically Discord in the Twitch stream because it was the easiest way to share things, but with that you couldn't do too much. So it's been fun kind of automating stuff like this, and it also, yeah, automating in general, like I was saying, like with the stream deck, but also like most of the stuff I have on my checklist before I stream now, it's pretty much streamlined into automated things now, whereas before it was like, okay, literally, okay, press that, do this, and
Mm-hmm.
this does tie into it's kind of the same thing with what you're saying, like once you get better at these things, you totally know what you're doing, like even like video in the stream, like I couldn't figure out for the longest time how people we're having, because for folks that don't stream, you can't share a guest's video easily, like out of the box. You have to use something like, I
So
know James,
difficult.
you use StreamYard a lot, I think, when you're doing
I
compressed
do.
FM.
Yeah, we
Yes.
do now, and that's because it's so easy to do that. But I was doing my guest stuff with OBS and like pulling in raw feed from Zoom and positioning and stuff. And then I had like, I'm actually curious, so you can tell me how you do it in a second. But I would pull in
Yeah.
guest information from data in Airtable and then display it on the overlay. And I had an overlays website that I like basically copied from Brad Garrity. So he was a big inspiration for me when I was doing that. And I was really proud of
Yeah.
that. So anyway, do you hard code the information for like my name and the title, or do you have that stored
Yeah.
somewhere and then automatically pull that in? How does that work?
It is hard coded for now in the sense, but it's actually a web form. So like, I'm not gonna remove it now, but like I can get the URL. I can show it. Give me one sec here. But basically, I use there's a couple things. One, like I found it harder like when I was setting up my footer and stuff and all that with just what's in OBS. So like I had some aspects that were web, which are the interactive parts. But
Mm-hmm.
let's go to, let me just share my screen for a sec here. All right, there we go. Oh, we got you up there. Okay, cool. So I have this form here. So this is it doesn't look properly formatted right now, because another thing for folks who don't stream is whenever you have web views in streaming, it's for Chromium only, and I have it fit exactly, like you can be pixel
Yep.
perfect
The
kind of in
window
there. So
size. Yep.
that's why this isn't responsive. But if I change the URL here, and of course it's deployed to Netlify. So this is
Obviously.
whenever I finish my stream, I wipe out the information, and then I come in here after, and I can just go like this, and then I submit it, and this is what runs on the stream, and then it updates it down there.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
That part is like dynamic in that sense, but I do want to eventually pull it in from Airtable or stuff, just one more
Mm-hmm.
aspect to automate. It's just I haven't had time to do that yet. And I also want to put it in Airtable or something similar as well, because right now when I on my website, like if I go to here, I've got my streaming, and I have a GitHub action that pulls in like latest videos and stuff. But I do want to eventually generate separate pages, and if I had it in Airtable, I could have the information about the guest, and then I could load
Mm-hmm.
the YouTube videos still and stuff, just because like a lot of stuff like I automate in here. I mean, I know this isn't really video stuff, but like a lot of my blog I automate too. Like I pull in blog posts from Dev2, and then they just a GitHub action does it automatically, and it just
Okay.
republishes my blog posts.
So you
Um,
write to dev to first and then import into your blog.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
I have content on Hashnode 2 now, but I don't have that automated at the moment. So that part I kind of copy paste. Or no, they have an importer actually for Dev2 articles. So that's how I do that.
Yep.
But like to your point before, where you're saying like you still have all these things you want to do, like there's a million things I have in my head to automate, because it will 100% make me
Yep.
more efficient. It's just there's only so many hours in the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a fun world to be in. It's a fun problem to have, but it is like slightly defeating sometimes to never have enough time to do all the things, because it is so cool, right? Like all the doing automation setup with code is like the epitome of why it's amazing to be a developer. Like as a developer, we can look at a problem, like a digital problem of some sort, and we can go and solve it because we can write the code to do it. And that's so cool. But you just need the time to actually sit down and knock it out.
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure. So we'll talk about the podcast a bit too, and we will get to SvelteKit at some point. I know we're kind of changing the topic of the stream a bit, but I hope that's okay, because this is really interesting stuff anyways.
Mhm.
So I guess like what's the point, like eh, this might sound obvious, but like to go full time on content creation, like when like what's that tipping point, like in YouTube, like when can you start making like a salary almost off of YouTube? Like is it based on the users which cause the viewership? Like I don't really know how the algorithms work or
Yeah.
anything like that.
So the easiest first answer that people typically think of, which is actually not the biggest driver in terms of revenue, is ads on YouTube. So you get monetized after, I forget what the number is, 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 watch hours in the previous year.
Okay.
And then now you're eligible to earn money. And I remember like having a phone, like calling one of my best friends and being like, dude, I got monetized. I've got 16 cents like that I've made from ads. But
Yeah.
it's obviously so tiny, but that's starting to now get this feeling of like the stuff that I do is actually valuable to some extent. Like not that
Hmm.
much, yeah, but there's value associated with this. And so anyway, like
Yeah.
that is not the number one thing. And I'll give a couple numbers. I'm super transparent for people that are curious. I think the most I've made in a month, I I think I had one month that was maybe $2,500 to $3,000 in a month from ads, which that's like the
Okay.
high end, and I haven't done that like especially recently. But that's a
Yeah.
pretty significant amount of side income. Like that's a great thing.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
My most recent one I think is 1,200, and like 1,200 1,000 to 1,500 maybe is kind of a good range, maybe 2,000 if I'm having a better month. So anyway, that's a little bit of an idea. Like that's nice side income. That's not a salary by any means. And so
Yeah.
the bigger thing actually comes from sponsored content. And that is super valuable, especially as you build your brand, your reputation, like you're active in places, people trust the things that you come out with. Because you have to be careful about doing sponsored content to make sure that it fits your channel, that it's like brands
Yeah.
that you believe in, that you're not going to lose trust by creating content around that sponsor. And so I've been doing that to
Okay.
some extent for 2 years or so. And so like the first one I did was $500, and then I did some at 1,000, and then I did 2,000, and then I made a jump to 5,000, and that was like a big deal for me.
Okay.
And now I'm somewhere in the range of like 7 to 10,000 per video. And now you're starting to talk about like real income, right? If you can do
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
couple of those per month, and then layer on like $1,000 with YouTube ads and like maybe existing courses that bring in a few $100s and maybe $1,000 a month, like now you're looking at real money. And so by the
Okay.
time I got let go from Planet Scale, well, just like general numbers, the previous year I made 60,000 on the side, which
Okay.
super cool. Also part of that was teaching, so it was a little bit. I think I got like 10,000 in that calendar year from teaching, and
Mm.
so up until the summer, I'd maybe made like 35,000, and
Okay.
I have had enough work to do that I couldn't do it all. And so I knew going full time, I could do more. I also knew I had been generating money on the side, which means I have savings. Like we've been really responsible. So I'd already
Hmm.
proven I can generate a pretty good amount of income. My wife makes a good salary. She has benefits. So I don't have to worry about that part. And I knew that I
Yeah.
had enough work in the backlog of companies that I'd be excited to work with to be able to do it full time. So that's what I'm
Yeah.
doing now, is balancing like the majority of income right this second is from sponsored content. It's cool because I get to meet different companies and try out different products, and that's a ton of fun. Also very lucrative monetarily. And then a couple of the extra things, the podcast is bringing in some income with sponsorships. That's something I'm going to spend more dedicated time with now that I'm full time. The bigger thing, and you see this with the West Bosses and Scott Talinsky's and Chris Sev that we talked about earlier, the
Yeah.
bigger potential impact comes from like having your own courses. And so that'll like, we can lead
Yeah.
into the Everything's Felt course conversation whenever we're ready. But that'll be like the bigger kind of scaled opportunities is content that you 100% own, that people are looking to consume because you've provided enough value and earned enough trust in the community that they trust the
Yeah.
stuff that you put out.
Wes Boss, who you were speaking about, fellow Canadian. Shout out Tim Hortons, Tim Bits. Anyways, he's been doing it for a long time, and I think it's Joel Hooks from Egghead that
Hooks.
calls him
Yeah.
West Boss as a service.
Service. Yep.
They've kind of modeled like they do the courses on Egghead,
Epic
not like there's Egghead the
React.
platform. Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. So I think they've kind of modeled it somewhat to kind of what he was doing,
Hmm.
what he does. But
Yeah.
yeah, Wes
Egghead's
has
got a
been
great
super successful,
strategy about
and
that.
Egghead too.
Yep. And to your point, Wes, too. There's a question I wanted to answer, if that's okay,
Oh yeah, yeah, go for it.
from Josh, who will be on the podcast Friday. I misspoke earlier and said tomorrow. Today's Wednesday, so I'll
Cool.
be on the podcast Friday. He was asking if I make money at conferences, and the most of that answer is up until this point, no. But that's something that I want to scale up is my
Okay.
speaking presence and look and target higher profile speaking opportunities, specifically keynotes and like maybe MC. Like
Okay.
I think MC would be fun, and also get paid for that. So I actually have, this sounds really cool to say, although nothing's happened with it yet, but I have a speaker agent now. So in theory, what will happen is like she will source opportunities and she knows my speaker rate and how to factor in like travel and that sort of stuff and
Okay.
set that stuff up for me to where that would be like passively happening behind the scenes. And then I get to prepare content and go on talk. And I know like lots of people will do this sort of thing. Danny Thompson is one that's done a ton of stuff and he's done really
Yeah.
well for himself on either virtual and in person of that sort of stuff. So that's one of the things that I'm looking to scale up as well. So like not so much have made money yet, but that's one of my goals and probably next calendar year is to start generating some income off of speaking opportunities as well.
That's cool. No, I think you'd definitely be a great keynote for folks. I'm sure most people in the chat know who you are, but yeah, you've got some pretty serious rap skills there. Bring that to the keynote.
What so I've thought about pitching that at some point. I like that would be a whole different level of imposter syndrome for me. Like that's a like it's cool to do the rap stuff and I think I'm good enough about it to like share it and not be embarrassed about it, but to be up on stage in front of people and do it live, like that's a whole different
Yeah,
thing
yeah,
where
for
people
sure.
in theory they're like, yeah, that'd be super cool. I'd love to see it. But then like, would it be awkward? I don't know. So maybe one day.
I'm interested in doing talks too because I've given like prior to the pandemic, I had given literally one talk at a meetup, like a Montreal
Mm.
JavaScript meetup. It went okay. Like I mean, the content was good. It was about Storybook, but I it's the first time I presented and like coordinating your slide deck and all that stuff. It
Mhm.
wasn't that great, but I've been doing a ton of talks since the pandemic, but they've all been virtual. Like I
Yep.
did one for a Hacktoberfest for DigitalOcean in 2020, and a bunch of
Cool.
others. I do some at like the virtual coffee lunch and learns too. But
Yeah.
I'm looking to finally do like an actual in person one, like a I'm pretty comfortable talking to people generally. Like, mind you, I've never had like potentially thousands of people in front of me or something, so that's could be a whole different ball game. But that's kind of on my plate. Like, I submitted one to Modern Front Ends there in London. It's still
Yeah.
it's still in
You're waiting to hear.
evaluation.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll see. I
Hopefully,
mean, if it
hopefully
doesn't
I'll
work
see you
out,
there.
oh yeah, you're going. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Amy and I
Yeah,
are both going. Um,
nice.
yeah, I'm looking. So I can't, maybe I could, but I won't. So I'll be super, not suspicious, super
Vague, I guess.
teasery. I'll tease something. So I will actually have my first bigger keynote opportunity coming up in January, which I'm super excited about. I'll share on Twitter and stuff if people are interested. But I think they
Cool.
want to make a bigger announcement, so I'll wait to say who. Although, like, you could go and research what conferences are happening in January and maybe
Yeah.
find out. So I'll be doing that in January, which I'm super excited about. Can I plug a link in the chat for a talk that I'm giving
Yeah.
tomorrow, virtual
Go
one?
for it.
So this is with CFE.dev, Brian Rinaldi.
Okay.
I've got to know him over the past several months. He was at a conference with me a few months ago, so we got to hang out and chat. And then anyway, I'm doing a talk for a CFE.dev group about 30 tips for like navigating your career your way,
Okay, yeah.
which is a ton of fun. So that's actually a segment of stuff that I will probably like keynote opportunities. I'm thinking a lot of them will revolve around like career stuff. Anyway, so I'm excited to do that one tomorrow.
No, that's cool. Yeah, no, Brian's good people. I think I met him through Lucia Searchy because she used to work at StepZen with him, and
Okay.
he's in my virtual coffee community now. He's got a lot of stuff going on. He does like, well, there's the CFE talks that I think they
Hmm.
happen once a week or maybe every 2 weeks. But there
Yeah.
was the Jam Dev he did
Hmm.
or organized. Like he's got a bunch of stuff going on. Yeah,
There
we're
was
getting some
more
nice shout outs.
serverless. Yeah,
Yeah,
there was
exactly. Yeah.
like a women in tech one. I forget what the name of that was. Yeah, he's doing awesome stuff. Also, super shout out to Virtual Coffee too. Becca is like one of my favorite people in the world, and
Oh yeah,
I
same.
know good things about Virtual Coffee, but I continue to hear even better things about Virtual Coffee just from people in the
Yeah.
community. So super excited that you're able to volunteer with them and participate there as well.
Yeah, she's really great. I've known her since I think June 2020 now. It's like getting close to 3 years. Like
Hmm.
I was like one of the first people, and she just put out a tweet. This is like the pandemic. Everything was like doom and gloom. I mean, pandemic's not over, but like in 2020, it was pretty doom and gloom. And she's just like, hey,
Yep.
anybody want to, have a virtual coffee? Or I think that it was phrased like that somehow. And,
Hmm.
sent her a DM on Twitter. I think I missed the first one because of a work thing, but then I said, hey, I can come to the next one. And ever since then, yeah, she's really great people. And
Hmm.
yeah, she's working over at, where is it at?
Deep Gram.
Yeah,
Can
Deepgram. Thank you.
I Can I do another
Yeah,
announcement? I feel like there's like
just
there's so
plug
many
away, plug
things.
away. I have no sponsors, so just shamelessly plug anything.
Let me come on your stream and share all the things that I have going on. So Becca actually, she does community at DeepGram, which is AI for like speech to text and other things. And she was looking for a community to do a hackathon with. So we're actually partnering with her and DeepGram to do an
Oh,
exclusive
nice.
hackathon for the Learn, Build, Teach community. So the requirement is like there's like submission details and stuff, but it'll be from October 21st through the 31st. And so you'd have to be a part of the Learn, Build, Teach community, which we have a few people in the chat that already are, including Brittany, who's one of our admins and extended teammate of yours at Netlify. And
Yeah.
anyway, so that's going to happen in October, and we've got an exclusive or like dedicated channel for it inside of Learn, Build, Teach Discord if people are interested in joining. Cash
Nice.
prizes, by the way.
Okay, yeah. So make it rain, people. Make it rain. No, that's cool. Yeah, life of a content creator goes in so many directions.
Yeah, I was telling my wife, and I kind of mentioned this earlier. Like, I feel like I never have enough time. And I was telling my wife earlier, I was like, I feel like I have so many different things going on right now. It's kind of why, like, all of it is stuff I love, and that's always the number one thing, is figuring out how to prioritize and make sure that like for the things you do, you have enough energy and time to invest in them to do them well, which is a
Hmm.
constant struggle. But anyway, yeah, lots of good things going on.
Yeah. No, that's cool. That's great that you can offer like cash prizes with DeepGram there. I mean, like obviously hackathons are fun on their own, but
Hmm.
when there's a nice incentive like
Especially when there's
that,
money.
yeah,
Yep,
your motivation goes up a few notches, I think. Um,
absolutely.
but no, that's cool. So like, we'll touch on what other thing. I know we still haven't talked about SvelteKits. I
Are you
think
looking at Brittany's
Brittany's
comment?
like, yeah, yeah. But this does tie into Svelte. I listen to your compressed FM. I work out in the morning, but I usually take like an hour long walk in the
Hmm.
evenings just to clear my head and stuff. And I was listening to one of the episodes yesterday, and you were talking about building a Wordle clone with
Yeah,
Svelte. So there's the segue to Svelte, Brittany, just so that she'll be
fine,
happy now.
Brittany.
Yeah, yeah. It's just interesting hearing about all the pieces that go into it. Well, like anything you build out, there's it looks fairly simple from the
Yeah.
outside, but there's a lot of logic that goes into any
Hmm.
game, I think. And you were talking about all the different logic and stuff, and no, it's just interesting to listen to you.
There was a
But yeah,
ton. There's a ton of logic in that game. Like it is simple to consume, but there's like a ton that goes into it. And that's why it was such a fun project. Because at the time I had been using Svelte for a while, but like not super, like just demos for YouTube, which is like the big difference, honestly, between you and I, is you actually get real engineering work and I just build demos for YouTube, which means I can try more things, but my depth of knowledge is probably not there in a lot of scenarios. So anyway, this is a cool, like slightly bigger project to work on with Svelte and build something fun, because Wordle, I think, was such an
yeah,
inspirational thing, going back to like the benefits of being a developer. Like that developer
hmm,
built something in a month or 2 months or however long and did it in a way where people were really enticed to play, and then sold it for $1 million or several million or however much. Like
yeah,
that's the feeling. That's like the thing. That's the goal, right? Is to be able to create
yeah,
something. Maybe it's money, maybe it's just to help the world, maybe it's to see other people use it and like feel good about having created the thing, whatever it is. So yeah, that was a ton of fun. A lot of what I talked about in there is with Svelte Store. So for people who are new to Svelte, this is one of my favorite things about Svelte, in addition to like several other things. It's just a built-in store, which is kind of like your state management thing. So in React, you have the
yeah,
context API, which is like always way more confusing to me to set up than I would like it to be. Also, thinking
yeah,
about a beginner using it, like there's so many things. Like it works great for what it is once you get it set up, but it is really tricky to get it set up. And then I've
yeah.
always been a fan of Angular, because Angular has had services which kind of serve as stores built in, and they're more opinionated. So I have more stuff built in. Anyway,
Okay,
like the state management stuff with stores and Svelte is super nice. And so I was talking through all the different game pieces that I have to keep track of. Has the user played the game before? Have they played today's game or word? How many days have they played in a row? What's their
okay,
streak? Like, did they win those games? Did they lose those games? And then you get down to like guessing individual letters. So you have to keep track of like the letters overall that they've guessed. And then you have to keep track of like where the letters are that they've guessed. And then you have to keep track of the
hmm,
feedback for each individual letter of whether or not it's correct. not correct or just like not in the right spot. You have to keep track of all these
Yeah.
things. So that logic got like deeper and deeper. But Svelte was just, it was a ton of fun to work with and made the learning experience a really good one. And continuing to use Svelte and now SvelteKit, which we can talk about a little bit more and more.
Yeah, so like Brittany, who's in the chat, my coworker, who's awesome by the way. I did a stream with her about a month and a half ago, and she gave me an introduction to Svelte. So not SvelteKit. So Svelte, I kind of got the gist of it. I've done Angular before, but this was like back in the Angular 1.4 days, like the
Angular
pre-TypeScript.
JS.
Angular JS, yeah, they renamed it. That's right. But
Yep.
when I saw Svelte, I've done a lot of handlebars in the past, which is another
Mm-hmm.
templating language, and Svelte looked a lot like that, but also with a mix of actual JavaScript. That's one thing. Like in handlebars, like when you have stuff in the curly brackets, you can't use JavaScript in it. Like they have kind of expressions you can put, but it's not
Yep.
actual JavaScript. And with Svelte,
Yep.
they just went all in, which is super nice because it was something I always found super annoying about handlebars, because you would basically have to create these conditions elsewhere and then just say if this condition, it's like it
Yep.
was just caused a lot of friction for me. But it's kind of neat to see how that's all working. And it's reactive as well, so like just setting, like at least from the stuff
Just
I do
updating a
with Brittany.
variable.
Yeah, like you don't do a set state, like if for folks who've done React, it's just like you declare your variable and then it becomes reactive, so you can just later on say like this variable is now equal to this or plus plus. And there's people in the chat going, oh Lord, handlebars expressions. Yes, yes.
Yeah, just there's a ton of different templating languages. They're all more or less kind of the same, but the addition of like the JavaScript piece in there is really nice. And then with Svelte, the
Mhm,
directives that they give you on top of that, and then especially the state management within a
mhm.
component of like not having to use state, but just having a variable and then updating that variable is a game
Yeah,
changer. It's so nice to not have to worry about the state stuff as much.
it's nice to see Svelte kind of comes back to, like, even though it's a Svelte component file, you have a script tag, you have like a markup section, and then
Hmm.
CSS, using an actual script tag, a style tag. So it's like, I know it's not actually like an HTML file because it's got to get compiled and stuff, but it's
It's
nice that they
close.
went with like what's like
Hmm.
really in the platform, and I think that to me lowered the barrier right away. Like I didn't know much about Svelte before speaking with Brittany on the last stream, and I felt pretty comfortable just getting to work already. Having some handlebars experience helped me a bit with the syntax, but just it being like I can just declare CSS, I can just write JavaScript pretty much like in a vanilla way. I think that removed the barrier to learn it. I'm by no means a professional yet, but it's just like within that hour and a half, I felt very productive, is what I'm getting
Yeah.
at.
Yeah, it really
Yeah.
is. So like Svelte on its own, like not SvelteKit yet, like the syntax, the
Yep.
simplicity, the built-in stuff, super nice. Then you layer on SvelteKit and like people, this is usually the easiest comparison from the React ecosystem. You have great React app, then you have something like
Mm-hmm.
Next.js. And Next.js, I think was like one of the things that really pushed the definition of modern web development, because we went through this real big phase with the Jamstack of like strictly static content, and Gatsby in the React ecosystem was dominating that. Everybody at the time was rebuilding their site with Gatsby, which I did as well. And I like didn't do anything with Next for a long time, heard about it for a long time, finally tried it. And it's like, okay, now you have the ability to do statically generated content, server side rendered content, and then mix those in between with like hydration and stuff on the front
Yeah.
end if you need it. And so it gave you like it just gave you the tools to build all the things that you want to and be able to pick and choose when and how to do what which way. Super generic, but like
Yeah.
it then became about education, I think, of like with the different options that we have, what are the trade-offs, what are the benefits, and how do we choose based on the specific scenario, the problem we want to solve, which of those makes the most sense.
Mm-hmm.
And we kind of got into a new like phase of Jamstack and modern web development, is that ability to have the tools to do the thing that you need in the way that you want. All of it's kind of right there. And so that's what SvelteKit
Yeah.
has become for Svelte. And previously there was Sapper, which I had never used, which was just that layer on top of Svelte itself. And now there's SvelteKit,
Okay.
which now is in RC from 1.0. Just went through a bunch of big changes, which I can talk about that from a content creation perspective, which has been really difficult. But now it gives you the ability to, like, you can have static content. You can
Okay.
have server side rendered content, which, especially if you're doing something like authentication, now you can like gate pages before they actually get to the browser.
Okay.
Because the way authentication works in single page apps is like you load the app. Now you do some sort of check to see if the user is logged in before you display anything, or you display a loader or something. And so you have this like slight delay. It's worked really well for years, but there's a delay in like, after I load the page, do I know that the user's logged in or not? Versus now, if you do that server side, you make a request to the server, it figures out if you're logged in. If you're not, it redirects you maybe to a different page or to log in. If you are logged in, it just sends the page directly. And so now you actually
Yeah.
have the content that you need with it. You can pass props to it and all those things. And so you have that ultimate flexibility, again, to build the thing that you need to build in the way that makes the most sense for you, with kind of all the tools that you need. So it's really exciting, I think, as a developer, to see like, not only was there Next.js that kind of, to me, put that idea on the map, but also these other frameworks that are working with it, maybe slightly against it, but like as an ecosystem, the tools and things continue to get better and better. And there's some mixed feedback, I think, on the updates. And SvelteKit, I think it's one of those things, from
Yeah.
a like a setup perspective, or just from a like how it looks and feels perspective, that's a little iffy for people initially because they're used to the way it was. But I think it's one of
Okay.
those things that's going to pick up and become more common across different frameworks as well. And people are just going
Yeah.
to get used to it, and they're going to really enjoy it. So the excitement, the optimism of SvelteKit, like I definitely have, and I think lots of people in the community, probably in the chat as well, share also.
Yeah. Yeah. There's been it kind of like, I don't know if I want to say renaissance, but like things have kind of come back a bit to how the web was originally, like
Mm.
because we went like we got into this whole single page application thing. I was guilty of working on these too. There are valid use cases to have a single page application.
Mhm.
Figma is a great example. It's really a lot of client side interactivity. They're also using like WebAssembly and stuff,
Wasm,
but
yeah.
Wasm. Anthony, for example, he's mentioning serverful MPAs, so multi-page applications. The funny thing about that is the term MPA exists because we created spas. Before
Spot,
that, an
yeah.
MPA was literally
Was
just a
just a
website.
website.
You
Yeah.
know, so it's
Yeah.
just kind of funny like that we got these terms now, but you do need it to distinguish it, and I think it's probably for newer developers too, because a lot of people from the old guard, when I speak to them, they're just like, yeah, so a regular website.
A website, yeah. But people that are newer, that like joined in this like glamorization of static sites, and or just like spas in general, they're like, oh, like I thought this is how it's always been. So it is good to differentiate. And I do think too, like it's important to note, like as funny as it is that we've come full circle and now we've like added back in functionality that was already there, the
Mhm.
functionality of having an MPA multi-page app, having server-side rendered stuff, which is what was the default several years ago. Now we have that in a much more modern way. So it's not like we just
Oh
decided
yeah.
the old way was the right way. Like we decided like all of these have benefits, and now we're providing
Mhm.
frameworks and tooling around that to enable, again, developers the options to build the right use case for the, or like use the right use case for the thing that they're building based on very specific needs, which again comes back to the education as a developer. Because these different
Mhm.
scenarios and options exist, you now have to understand more about how the web works, more about implications of performance, more about all the things that go into it to then make the educated decision on which way to go.
Yeah, no, for sure. And like, even static sites are still, it's still a great thing to have. Like I have my blog, I have an 11e blog, and it's a static
Hmm.
site because there's literally nothing interactive about my blog aside from like I have a toggle to change the theming. But there's the interesting things like incrementally generating some pages. It's got different terms in different frameworks, but you could serve like the example I always think of is like, imagine you're a newspaper online. Maybe you statically generate like this month's content, but there's no point on generating like millions of
A
pages, including
million,
like
yeah.
an article from like 1972 or something. Because if somebody really does want to read that article, whenever they click on it, then that's when it will get generated. So like it's kind of like a hybrid, and there's a lot of great stuff. This kind of touches on stuff I do at Netlify because I work on the frameworks team. So it's really cool to, because like before I was, only working in one kind of tech stack. Now I get to kind of dabble in all kinds of tech stacks, but it's just really like serverless and edge is also enabling a lot of this stuff. So like
That's
it's
another
kind of going to the old
big
way,
topic.
but in a modern way, you know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
so like, just having serverless or edge is great for a lot of scenarios, including stuff like you're talking about. Like, and I know SvelteKit supports this because we have an adapter for Netlify to serve your app on the edge. And so like you could have stuff where you're just saying like some edge function says, hey, you're trying to access some gated content, and the edge function can say like you got to log in first, and then you can
Hmm.
serve the static stuff. So it's a nice kind of hybrid and just kind of evolution of what like the Jamstacks become. So it's pretty cool.
The serverless piece, the edge piece, and then like from a database perspective with the edge, all gets really, really interesting. That's I think like one of the missing ish pieces is how to do
Hmm.
databases really well that can be taken advantage of, that can be used in
Yeah.
on the edge. But yeah,
Yeah, no,
fun,
for sure.
fun
Yeah.
world we live in.
I know you're no longer at Planet Scale, but like Planet Scale is one of those companies trying to, solve that problem because like
Hmm.
having websites on the edge is super fast, but if you have to go to Amazon, US East to hit a
Yep.
database, then you get that slowdown there. It's definitely a tough problem, I would say, but companies like PlanetScale, FaunaDB, and other edge enabled databases are working on that tough problem. So it's cool
Hmm.
to see what's going on. Yeah, there's
Anthony
so much
mentioned.
going on.
Hmm. Anthony
Yeah,
mentioned
sorry, go ahead.
Neon and Cockroach as
Oh,
well.
yeah.
And Luciana mentioned Prisma and Supabase for Edge apps. I'm kind of curious how Supabase specifically falls into that, because like this is where the intricacies of all these things and buzzwords and technologies that we have at our disposal, the depth of knowledge that it takes to understand exactly when and how to take advantage of them is tricky, because the edge doesn't just solve a bunch of stuff for you. Like if you're making a
Yeah.
request to something that's at the edge, that's closer to you. But if that thing is making a database request, to your point, to a database that on the other side of the world, you've not really sped up anything. Like you're still having to make a request
Hmm.
for something all the way on the other side of the world. So I'd actually be
Yeah.
curious. This is like a different conversation maybe for Luciana of how Supabase fits into the edge piece there, because I think Supabase is still like a deployed thing in a US, like it's a Postgres thing, and probably by default a US data center. So I don't know like what else comes with that. Oh, Supabase
Oh,
has
yeah.
edge functions. Yeah, so that's interesting because
Yeah.
I again I like this is where the the details come into play, because I'd still be interested, like if they have edge functions, do they also have edge replications of the database? Because if they have the edge
Yeah.
function, unless you've got stuff cached, you're still having to make a request from there to wherever that actual database is, if that makes sense.
I get what you
Anyway.
mean. Like the functions can be there, but it's the same thing. Like a web page just saying go to a database again. But it's
Hmm.
it's a bit out of my own wheelhouse. I find it super interesting because like I think whoever cracks that problem is gonna be huge in the next few years for sure. Because like moving your websites to the edge, like there's trade-offs for everything. Like when you serve stuff on the edge, I think you get like 50 milliseconds of CPU time to like run your function, whereas if you're on
Mm.
serverless, you get like 10 seconds. So there's
Oh,
like it
okay. I
depends
didn't
what
think about
it
that. Yeah.
depends what you're doing too.
Yeah.
It's not like edge is necessarily perfect for everything. Everything has trade-offs, but it's definitely, if you can serve your stuff on the edge, it's better because it's closer to where your potential customers are. But yeah, there's like so much. I know we're going on tangents here, but honestly, like as a web developer, I've been so like some people, you know, get drained by hearing about, oh, another JavaScript framework or this or that, or like so many things are changing. And I just find it super interesting, and I just think it's great. Like even tooling is so much better. Like even though people
Hmm.
still complain about tooling, probably it's like light years of ahead of what it used to be. And like I don't know, there's just so much going on. But just like the teaching aspect in terms of like new developers, like you get this overload of, okay, here's 7 frameworks, here's a million
Hmm.
databases, here's a tool chain.
Yep.
So I know, like for example, Fresh, which is a newer edge based framework, they're
framework
trying
for
to go back
daemon.
to simplicity. There's no bundle step. You just push your pages up and kind of like that's it. So it's like I think there's a aspect of simplifying things again too, but
Hmm.
I don't know,
Yeah,
so much
and
stuff.
like getting rid of boilerplate. Like I think that's the epitome of the progression of frameworks and tools is like seeing the things that we have to do, like we do it over and over again, and saying like, all right, there's no need in everyone writing the code for this, and kind of baking some of that stuff into these newer
Yeah,
frameworks. I think it's also easier with experience comes the ability to not get so overwhelmed with all these new things, because you're able to make a more educated decision in your head of like what you can ignore and what you can like
yeah,
passively listen to, and then make an educated decision of like, okay, this has been a thing that people are talking about long enough that I may need to invest some time just for like the benefit of my career going forward, just to learn about it
yeah,
and maybe dig in more. That's definitely how I approach it. Like I feel like I was like 2 years behind a lot of people in trying out Next.js, and then I was behind a lot of people in SvelteKit, and then I recently redid
hmm,
my personal site in Astro, and it's hearing about these things for months and maybe a couple of years, knowing that I have the ability to like tune it out for now and I can focus on what I'm doing. Also acknowledging like these are things to pay attention to in the future, and then making that decision at some point. Because when you're newer, you hear a new thing and you think you have to go and do it. You think you have to
yeah,
go and learn this new framework or tool, and you just don't necessarily have the experience to know when and where to put your extra time that you have, because we only have so much
yeah,
time, and you're also like in this learning journey on your own anyway. So I think it definitely is like a level of comfort that comes with the
hmm,
experience of being able to know like when and how to prioritize your time, where and for what specific opportunities.
yeah. No, for sure, totally agree. Because like, I used to like just drink from the fire hose, and after a while it's just not maintainable. I'm not going to be building something with literally all these new things, so I got more into the habit of I'll skim some things. Okay, that looks cool, I might bookmark it or whatever, and then later on I might go back to it.
Mhm.
Or a lot of times, like a lot of jobs I've had, it's just like, yeah, this is what we're using, and you just I don't know if
That's
people use
it.
the expression still, but baptism by fire. You just get thrown
Hmm.
into it, and it's like YOLO, let's go. There is so much stuff, and you got to have that work life balance too. Like, I mean, you still want to learn. I'm definitely a firm believer of you kind of do have to put some time outside of work really to learn more. Like, I do believe in work life balance, but I also know that like I put in time to learn a lot of the things that I'm pretty good at nowadays, like, and that's just a choice people make, not to get all deep
Yeah,
there,
no, it's a
but
good, yeah, it's a good conversation to have also. And this is maybe what Brittany's kind of getting at. So I'll push back a little bit to say, like, I think that's also the company's responsibility to foster that type of environment, in terms of companies should be providing learning opportunities, training opportunities. They should provide 2 hours a week or like whatever the thing is of like exploration to go out and learn something new, spend time with
mhm,
that new tool. Because like to your point, because I had spent so much time when I was in engineering at FedEx learning about web development on my own, I would come into work all the time and be like, I know how to solve this problem because I've done this in something at home.
yeah,
And so I think it's company's responsibility to support that. And one of the tips that I have for people in their career is just to always ask. And so ask for time to do that, ask for money for that. Like at FedEx, for
mhm,
example, I got to go to a conference, which was a couple $1,000s. And then I would progressively every couple months ask for resources to get a new course. So I would take Wes Boss's courses, I would take stuff on Udemy. And maybe over the course of, the 3 years that I was there, got 1,000 or 1,200 bucks or whatever to do education. But I asked for that and then invested that
yeah,
time and then invested the money at work to learn these things, because I could bring it back to the team and to help educate and grow the team as a whole. So yeah,
yeah,
have always spent plenty of time outside of work, but also just want to call out for people like that should be something that you can leverage your company for as well. I think good companies
yeah.
should foster that type of learning environment and support that.
No, for sure. And there's like in terms of the money aspect, a lot of places do offer educational stipends. Like
Hmm.
the I had an educational stipend at Dev 2 before. I used it all, bought some
Yep.
courses and stuff. Netlify has it as well. I've already used some of it. I haven't finished it all yet, but it's totally worth it. You know, grab some books, courses, and to your point about like the learning on the job, I definitely think it's great if a company can do that. I don't want to say pro tip, but sometimes like because most places I worked at, they just didn't do that. You know, things have changed over the years, but I would just basically use part of my day to learn stuff. And I
Mhm.
just would,
Yeah.
you know, I just would tell people, I would just
Yep.
be like, because it's not really cheating the job. It's like, it's helping my job and help them, you know? So,
Agreed. Yep. I think that's definitely a reasonable thing as well. And especially like as you're continuing to get your work done, whatever, that's the priority. So what you can how you prioritize your time to still get stuff done and also be productive for yourself is up to you, I think.
we haven't talked about it. We talked a bit about SvelteKit, but I know I can't remember if you have a SvelteKit course, but I can't remember if it's finished or are you still working on it? Because I know there's been a lot of changes to SvelteKit
Yeah.
itself.
Yeah, it is very much still in progress. So it's called Everything Svelte. Brittany's got the link in the chat for everythingsvelte.com. And this is Amy, my podcast co-host, and I working on this. And
Okay.
it's SvelteKit, Supabase, Stripe, Tailwind, a bunch of like really cool technologies. So just like hands-on experience building with SvelteKit and other technologies and stuff. And it's been really
Okay.
tough. So we're like, and this is a learning. I think every course creator has gone through this. I think every content creator has gone through this. It's taking a lot longer than we expected, and then
Hmm.
especially because of the changes. So like we had recorded some content and had to re-record it with the SvelteKit changes. I held off on like starting to do any of the Supabase stuff because they just went through an update with Supabase 2, which is in RC. So that
Okay.
has pushed things back by a lot. And so basically what we're doing, the course is in open preview now at a 40% off rate. And
Okay.
I think there's like 20 videos out now. It's like overall, it's not getting you that far. So it's really like, although 20 videos sounds like a lot, it's a decent amount of setup and kind of getting started.
Hmm.
And so we'll just continue to release videos over the next several, to be honest, as we have them ready. So Amy is doing the kind of first half of the course, which is design and animation and pages and layouts and that kind of stuff, which is really, really cool. And then I'm adding on like the Supabase stuff, getting into Stripe, and then she's going to do testing and email and stuff after that. So we're just
Okay.
trying to get as much done as quickly as we can. Also being respectful of like changes in the community and also balancing that with people that are looking for content. And that it's hard
Yeah.
for me to have been delayed because I obviously I want to give people everything as fast as I can.
Yeah.
So we're trying to balance all that and releasing content as we can, again with the 40% off rate right now, just with the understanding
Okay.
of like we're going to continue to release content over the next several months. And me kind of
Well,
figuring out like this is one of those things as a full-time content creator is figuring out capacity and time and availability, like trying to balance that with getting the stuff done on the course, sponsored content. So I continue to make money. Got a lot of travel
hmm.
coming up, which is super exciting, but also it's taking away a lot of potential opportunity to work on the course. So anyway, we're still actively working on it, releasing as much as we can when we're ready, and hopefully people are excited about it.
No, that's cool. Well, I do have an educational stipend, so I think I'll go snag that 40%.
Love
Yeah,
it.
no,
Yes.
I'm curious to learn more about Svelte because like I was saying before, it didn't make my brain hurt that much. Not that React makes my brain
Yeah.
hurt. I feel super comfortable in React land, but uh, it just like I was saying before, it felt nice that like I hadn't known much about it and I was still able
Oh,
to be super
comfortable.
productive. So
Hmm.
I'll be interesting to see like what SvelteKit provides as well, because like I know it's like you said, like a Next.js or like some a meta framework on top of it. So that's cool. And Will Johnson in the chats is saying just make vanilla JS courses.
That's like legitimately a thought for me. Like not that I won't do more like everything's felt in general, but I think I will prioritize more stuff like that because I'm really passionate about helping kind of early learners, helping them get their first job, helping them build for portfolio projects, like building skills to get that first job, and then having like
Yeah.
career conversations after that of how to get started, how to continue to grow. And I've got a
Hmm.
course. It was like one of the first courses. It's a free YouTube series on YouTube that I've ever done. And it was relatively small. It's a couple hours long. It's
Okay.
free videos on YouTube. Build a quiz app with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Ton of fun. And I still get like people doing that all the time. And like JavaScript has changed a little since then, but everything from this course 4 years ago, at least, maybe 5, still holds up. And anyway, so it's a very valid point. It's something that I definitely think about. We did our advent of CSS and advent of JavaScript courses last year. So 25 days, 25 challenges for advent. And that was a ton of fun. Those are just JavaScript and just CSS. So that sort of stuff will kind of carry its weight as well. And so we're ideally
Mhm.
trying to figure out to do something like that this year. I think just because of time, we're going to have hopefully other content creators, like maybe if we get 25 people each create a video, and I don't know how
Okay.
money would work, or maybe it would just be a promotional thing and be free. But we
Okay.
want to get like other people involved to do like, here, you build your own 1 day piece of this advent thing and have it be a bigger content creator piece. But yeah, doing vanilla JavaScript, CSS, other
Mhm.
things, definitely the lifetime of that content is definitely a lot longer than doing some of the more modern frameworks and tools and stuff. Just general question for the chat real quick. I'm curious what are tools and languages and things or frameworks that other people are excited about? Like could be stuff we mentioned or just completely random. If people have general ideas of stuff that they're enjoying, I'd love to hear what it is in the chat.
Oh, somebody's talking about remix. I know you've done some remix too, right?
Yeah. I kind of started to, and I started to with the idea of like doing this slightly bigger project while I was at Planet Scale, and then I got let go from Planet Scale, and that just completely derailed like remix focus for me. So I haven't done anything actually with remix in a while, and I didn't do that much up until that point. So I don't have as much experience as one might think, but everything that
Okay.
I saw, I enjoyed, and I know the remix community is continuing to grow in a really cool way.
Okay. No, that's cool. It's cool. Okay,
Another
cool.
thing
So
that
okay,
Amy and I have gotten really into is TypeScript, which
yeah, it's
we have advent of TypeScript domain, I believe. So that might be one that comes
okay.
out. So keep an eye out for that, maybe.
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm a fan of types as well. We were on a Twitter space together a little while back there. It's people have opinions about it, but it's kind of hard to ignore the popularity now. I've been using it since the early days, but it's definitely gained a lot of traction. I saw
Hmm.
forget where it was posted. I'm not sure if it's my coworker Lori Voss, who does the Jamstack survey and
Hmm.
stuff. I think it
Okay.
might have been them that posted it. It the most commits on GitHub this past month were in TypeScript. Our
Oh,
lines of
cool.
code committed, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know where you get these stats, but anyways, I saw it somewhere. But yeah, Josh is
Is
also talking
Lori?
about Zod.
Oh, for yeah, the validation stuff.
Yeah,
Um,
you were saying sorry for Lori.
is that the creator of NPM? Is that
Yeah,
right?
I can't remember. It's either co-creator. He's definitely co-founder. I can't
Hmm.
remember if I don't know how you say the other person's name. Isaacs. They're on
Okay.
Twitter. I think they co-founded, but I'm not sure if it was Isaacs that created it. I can't remember, but
Cool.
they were the first two people there. Yeah, Laurie's at Netlify now, doing all kinds of data stuff.
Hmm.
Like Brittany's saying, if you go on Twitter, just look for @Seldo.
Ooh, so a video I just did was setting up my terminal. I don't know. Did we talk about this on Twitter? Because I hadn't actually like customized my terminal in a while. So
Oh
just
yeah, yeah.
curious, what's your? You can just run through it in like 10 seconds or whatever. Like, what's your terminal setup here? What all are you using?
Yeah, so I'm in the integrated terminal a lot of VS Code, but regardless if I go into iTerm, it's the same thing. So I'm using it's called starship.rs. I'll drop that in the chat. So it allows you to customize the shell prompt. And there's other tools that do this too, but I think it was Lori, her last name's escaped me. She works at Netflix now. She used to
Netlify?
work.
Or sorry,
Yeah.
that's what I meant. Netflix. Lori. Shoot, what is her last name? She's awesome.
Yeah, I had her.
I'm
I
blanking.
interviewed her
Yeah.
on the dev team, but you know who
Oh,
I'm talking about.
Barth.
She's got a blue
Yeah, yeah.
shirt. But yeah,
Yep.
yeah, Lori Barth.
The one with the
She
blue
tweeted it
shirt.
out a little while ago. But yeah, she tweeted it out. I think a year and a half ago or something. I have Oh My ZSH as well, but
Yeah.
honestly, I
Cool.
think I use it because it has all these other aliases and stuff, neat things out of the
Hmm.
box. But you can also use it as well to customize your prompt.
Yep.
But in my case, I kind of overrode that with Starship. It gives you kind
Cool.
of a lot of contextual information. So like here, it's For example, it's showing a package emoji with version 0.001, and that's based on what's in the package JSON here.
Hmm.
And it's telling me I'm on node 16.16, and you can customize, or depending on like what you're into. Like if I'm in a Rust project, you'll see a little crab. You know, it's like everything. People love just customizing things, you know. And Fig as well. Yeah, somebody you mentioned Fig. Yeah, I have Fig as well.
Fig
There
for
you
the
go.
win. I love it.
Yeah, Fig
Yeah,
is really great.
Fig's amazing. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I took a look at Starship yesterday after you mentioned it. So I'm not actually using it, but I like the idea of being able to customize. And I ended up going with Gozilla, which actually looks like your arrow thing. It's a theme for Oh My ZSH, the arrow thing on like the green arrow that you have on the right. But it has something
Okay. Yeah.
like that. It has a similar look. And then also it is minimal in the sense like I don't necessarily need to see my full path of the directory I'm in. So I have it just show my
Okay.
current folder, and then it shows a git like the branch that you're on as well. So I'm using that and then maybe switching between that and the Cobalt 2 theme, which shows you a
Yeah.
couple of icons and colorings and stuff too.
Oh yeah. This is turning into a tooling stream now, but there's a
I
couple of
know.
things. Brittany's asking, "Am I using a new browser?" And yes, I am. So if we come here, so this is it's a Chromium-based browser. It's called Arc, ARC.
Nice.
Um,
Yeah.
I got an invite to it. I'll definitely. I don't know if you have it yet or not, or if you've tried it, but I got like one invite a while ago. If I get another invite, I'll definitely send you one if you're curious. I've been just finding it super productive, mainly because like so there's the sidebar here right now, but if I hide it, like the browser on its own, it's really focused on like
Just the
give me as
browser.
much real estate, you know.
Hmm.
And if I come up here, it'll come down and I can see some extensions I have, or I can open up the sidebar again. You can have different groups. So like here's like my work, here's like a social, this is when I'm streaming. And then I can have some other ones up here, like that's my different mails and like my calendar and stuff. I've just found it. I gave it a go, and then like after probably a day or two, I just felt super comfortable, and you know I hadn't been using Chrome in a while, anyways. I was using Microsoft Edge, the Chromium version.
Hmm.
It's Chromium based to Nikki in the chat there. I've been enjoying it,
I
and
heard either Scott Talinsky or Wes Boss, one of them was using it and really into it on the Syntax podcast. And I'm kind of curious about it, but I get overwhelmed at the idea of starting from scratch with a browser. And I guess I also think about like, not that I have a lot of settings with Google
yeah.
Chrome, but just like basic settings and then also plugin ecosystem. So I have no idea how the
Hmm.
plugin ecosystem with something that's newer, like Arc, would compare to Google Chrome, and if I would be missing out on like
Yeah.
the LastPass plugin or something that I use like every day. So yeah, like
Yeah. No.
it overwhelms me to start the idea of starting from scratch with a new tool.
They're valid questions and points. So, like I said, I was just trying it out, and then so when I tried it out, it had a really great onboarding experience. It
Hmm.
imported all my settings from Edge, which is essentially Chromium,
Sweet.
and it imported my plugins, my web extensions. So, like I use 1Password, that got pulled in. My other ones, so
So
you
it
can
did.
see them all
Okay.
up here. Yeah,
Yeah.
so they're all here. I mean, there's other ones. It's just like if I click on here, you can see other ones here. It's again, it's hiding a lot of the stuff,
Yeah.
but it's pretty customizable, and like like there's basically like even when I was using Microsoft Edge, because it's Chromium based, they have a Microsoft Edge extension store, but you can go to Google Chrome extensions and install them into Edge, and it works fine because it's Chromium at the end of the day.
Hmm.
And
Okay.
I
I
think
always
that's
forget
why
which
like
is which. Sorry, like the engines and which goes with what.
yeah, no, it's all good. So, like, I mean, nowadays, and this is a whole other topic, but people are kind of sad about like browser diversity, validly so, I think. But there's essentially nowadays it's Firefox, which I think the engine's still called Spider Monkey. I'm not sure, but and then everything
Best
else
name
is
ever.
Chromium. So like Arc, Chrome is Chromium,
Hmm.
obviously. Even Opera, which is another older browser, I
Is
believe that's
Chromium.
Chromium based now. Um,
Where does V8 fit in? Like V8 is the engine that Node runs on. Is it also related to the browser too, or is that a? Am I not thinking of that right?
no, that's right. Yeah, so V8's the JavaScript runtime that's baked into Chromium, And
Hmm.
then when you have like an Electron app
That's
or
baked
even
into
like Dino,
Chromium.
that's where all the JavaScript gets processed. Like they were talking about, sorry, I left out Safari, but Safari has something called, I think, JavaScript core. Because if you've been following any of the developments with Bun is
Hmm.
another runtime, and it's using the runtime that's built into WebKit, and it's called JavaScript core. So that's another one. But like
Oh,
Node.js
interesting.
uses so Node.js
V8.
uses V8, and Dino as well uses V8, which I didn't know at the time. But so like it runs TypeScript, and
Okay.
then they transpile it on the fly, and then it still serves it up in V8. So that's why, like, if I don't know if a lot of people have done any Dino work, but because we use it at work, but you can use the same debugging tools that like VS Code or the browser dev tools to debug Dino. I think a lot of the browsers have gone the Chromium way, like even like Brave browser is another one. And I think the main reason, like including Microsoft, is it takes a long time to build a browser. And I think they just kind of threw in the towel and said like, let's just go with this because like most of the internet uses it, and let's add our features to it. I think
Hmm.
that's pretty much what people kind of went with. And Nikki's just saying in the chat, yeah, they're all V8, Brave, Arc, etc. Yeah, Edge too. But getting back to your point, like in terms of like migrating to something like Arc, I mean, I'd say give it a go, but I don't think you'll miss anything that you had in Chrome or whatever Chromium based browser you're using.
That
There's
may be enough to convince me. I also get I
yeah,
get requests for like sponsored content. I got one from, I think it's Ghostly, which is it's a browser that I think is just really focused on like getting rid of ads and like tracking stuff, I believe.
okay.
And it sounds cool. Like I feel like other people would be more interested in it than I am because I mean, I'm probably being tracked and it's like I don't know that there's that much I could do about it. But I feel like it could be valuable for people, but I don't know that I could realistically create a sponsored piece of content around something that like I haven't actually used myself and like I don't need. That
Yeah,
feels a little odd, even if other people would benefit from it.
I'm definitely not in sponsored content territory yet, but I was contemplating doing a YouTube video about it just because I've been enjoying it. I've found the pain points I've had of other browsers. There's clearly a designer involved and like UX in this like heavily, because like just the fact that like I can use shortcuts or other ways to show the sidebar and just get everything out of the
Hmm.
way. They even have like, I don't know if you use Raycast or like if you've used Alfred, they have a key here. So if I do Command L, I can actually get the same kind of thing, and then I can go to a different site and so on. So I can go here, I can go to LinkedIn, and then it's just kind of easier to do that. I can do like Command T to create a new tab, and then I can go back to here, and then if I open it up, you'll see a new tab was created. And if you already had it opened, it doesn't open up a new tab. It goes to where you had it. Because
Okay.
in another browser, if you say like, okay, go to that page again, you can have multiple tabs open with the same page. I'm enjoying it. But it's
If you do the video,
I
I'll
get
definitely watch it.
yeah, when I have time, I think I will definitely do it. But and this kind of, I feel like we've got all kinds of topics we could talk about
Yeah.
another time. But like just tooling, like I'm
Hmm.
always a fan of like don't force people to use things. Like use what makes you the most productive. So like some people swear by Vim, and if it works really great for them, that's awesome. I'm personally, at least right now, I'm more productive in VS Code. I know the shortcuts,
Hmm.
and I feel productive in there. But
Yeah.
so that's for all the junior or people starting out. If somebody tells you you're not a real developer because I don't know, you didn't use shortcut whatever.
I ignore those conversations pretty quickly. By the way, just out of curiosity, I think you said Nikki. So in Muleman, what's your Twitter handle? Because I think I follow everybody else. I want to make sure that I follow you as
Yeah,
well. Thanks for the
I've
comments and insights and stuff.
okay, it is the same. I wasn't sure. Yeah,
Okay.
oh no, it is the same. Yeah, I've been following him for a while too. I just didn't know what his handle is. I usually type in people's names, and then it just shows up in the Twitter search. Um, but
Got
yeah,
it.
cool, cool. Well, we're kind of at time here. Honestly, I feel like I could talk to you for like another hour and a half, honestly, James. But I do want to be mindful of people's time, including my own, because I do have to get back to work. But
Work things
this
overrated.
was work, work. But no, this was super awesome talking about all the things. I know we didn't touch on SvelteKit as much as Brittany probably would have liked, but we had some great convos about all kinds of other things, including content creation and stuff. And yeah, Brittany's sticking out her tongue at me in the chat now.
Not the first or the last
But
time, I'm sure.
yeah, exactly. But yeah, no, it's been super awesome. Like James said, everything's svelte dot is it .com or
Yep,
yeah.
everythingfelt.com.
Yeah, everything's svelte.com. Right now, you said it's 40% off right now because you're still in the
Mm-hmm.
process of making it. Yeah,
Yep.
I'm looking forward to checking out that course. And yeah, aside from that, I know you got some travels coming up. But I don't know if you want to give a shout out to that before we call it a day.
Yeah, I'll be in Europe starting next week. So my wife and I get to London on the 27th. We'll be there until the 30th, go to Paris for a few days, and then go to Berlin. So she's got two Auth0 events, one in London, one in Berlin, called Dev Days. Let me see,
Okay.
Developer Days, Okta. Let me grab a link and I'll put it in the chat in case anybody is there. Also, if anybody is just in London or Paris or Berlin and wants to meet up and get coffee or something, send me a DM on Twitter. I'm trying to find a few people that I can just meet up with and hang out while I'm there. So yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks everybody for hanging. And with that, I will say have a great day, everybody. And thanks again so much, James.